Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy.
"50 years after the Warren Commission promised America that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone and that Jack Ruby acted alone, the Central Intelligence Agency is still hiding 1,100 files deemed secret, yet related to the public execution of President John F. Kennedy. CIA operatives were involved and continue the cover-up even today."
There's a no photography sign.
7 most wanted CIA files are those of Yuri Nosenko, William King Harvey, David Atlee Phillips, Ann Goodpasture, E. Howard Hunt, David Sanchez Morales, and George Jonides. One of those honored tonight at the Kennedy Center is Billy Joel.
Paul, Malcolm X, British politician, sex, JFK, blown away. What else do I have to say?
There's a lot to say, but first, back to the Kennedy Center. Influential people attend the Kennedy Center honors. Members of Congress, Supreme Court justices, corporate CEOs, tonight, even the President of the United States. Carl Golovin will hold a sign at the main entrance calling for release of the CIA files to honor John F. Kennedy. Maybe the sign will prompt news coverage, debate, even action on the CIA files issue. Being here tonight could make a difference.
Sir.
I can't videotape you?
No, we're not videotaping this. All right, here's the deal. I'm not going to play with you guys tonight. Either you can put your camera down or you can leave the property to. I understand it's free, but my name is Jackson.
Interestingly, Bill, who's videotaping me right now, was not allowed to videotape my interaction with the Kennedy Center security staff and also U.S. Park Police. Yet there are video cameras and cameras working everywhere.
No.
He cannot
Put
stop.
the camera
You
down.
cannot stop me.
Put the camera. He already told you not to
This is a
film.
public.
You need a permit to film.
I already told him. I'm telling you, you turn that camera on, you get locked up.
Threatened with arrest, seizure of the sign and camera if we didn't leave, take down the sign, or move where it could not be seen, Carl walked back to the parking garage as we came in, through the Hall of States. But the message was held high and noticed, perhaps more than had he remained standing outside the front door. After regrouping and securing our video footage, we returned. About those CIA files, read the book by Mark Lane titled Last Word, My Indictment of the CIA in the Murder of JFK. You will learn that in Miami in 1985, a trial took place in federal court that was never reported by network news. Sworn testimony established that in November 1963, CIA anti-Castro Bay of Pigs veterans in several cars carried weapons from Miami to Dallas. E. Howard Hunt acted as paymaster. Years later, in near death, Hunt recorded a taped confession. According to a reliable witness testifying under oath after returning from Dallas, Frank Sturgis said, "We killed the president that day. You could have been a part of it, part of history. You should have stayed. It was safe. Everything was covered in advance. No arrests, no real newspaper investigation. It was all covered, very professional. Another book written by Mark Lane, Rush to Judgment, became a documentary film.
Here comes Oswald down the hall again.
You buy that rifle? Just dispatches you people have been given, but I emphatically deny these charges.
Chief, do you have any concern for the safety of your prisoner in view of the high feeling among the people of Dallas over the assassination of the president?
No, but necessary precautions will be taken, of course.
Do you have personal knowledge of Oswald's ability with a rifle?
As far as I knew, Oswald was a very poor shot.
There's no doubt whatsoever in my mind in the statement that I made in the sheriff's office immediately after the shooting, and the statement that I made to the Warren Commission. And I made it very plain there was no doubt in my mind, but there was definitely a shot fired from behind that picket fence.
We all four seen about the same thing as the shots. The smoke came from behind the hedge on the north side of the plaza.
But you were never called as a witness by the Warren
No,
Commission?
I never was called. It was right directly in front of the wooden fence.
Were you ever called as a witness by the Warren Commission?
No, sir, I wasn't.
Did you think at that time that the shots came from the book depository building?
No, I thought it came from a fence.
Is this where you were sitting on November 22nd, Mr. Price?
Yes, sir.
Right here?
Right here on this spot.
And where did you see the man run?
Over behind that wooden fence, past the cars, and over behind the Texas Depository Building.
Were you ever called as a witness by the Warren Commission?
No, sir. No, sir.
And then as the car got directly in front of us, well, a gunshot apparently from behind us hit the president in the side of the temple.
Do you think the shot came from up on top of the viaduct toward the president? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Not on the viaduct itself, but up on top of the hill, a little mound of ground there, the garden.
When I stated I felt like the second and third shots could not have been fired from the same rifle, they reminded me that I wasn't an expert, and I had to agree.
Where did you hear that third shot come from?
Right over about 20 or 30 feet from the other end of that little picket fence. It knocked him over to his left down in the car.
Away from here?
Away from here.
The Warren Commission published just a very small portion of your testimony and used your testimony as proof that no shots could have come from behind the fence. Did they accurately and fairly use your testimony?
They are wrong, because my testimony, and I made it very clear, that there was a fourth shot fired, and one of those shots came from behind that picket fence. And there's no doubt in my mind, and never will be, because I was on the spot. I saw the smoke, heard the report, and saw the smoke from behind that fence.
The vast majority of the witnesses who expressed an opinion as to the origin of the shots agreed with Mr. Holland that the shot did come from behind the fence. These witnesses, as this picture shows, were positioned throughout Dealey Plaza. The commission concluded that no credible evidence suggests that the shots were fired from any place other than the Texas School Book Depository building.
Mr. Holland, you were on the overpass. You were probably in the best position of any witness on November 22nd. In your view, did the Warren Commission present all of the facts regarding the assassination of President Kennedy?
As you know, as well as I know, that everybody in the world was reading this Warren Commission, and it had to read like they wanted it to read. They had to prove that Oswald did it alone.
I really believe that the only way you can believe the Warren report is to not read it. Witnesses are reluctant
Some of them have gone into hiding, or at least cannot be found by me. And in many cases, the police have actually told, or in some witnesses say, federal authorities have told them not to talk about the assassination. There are at least 8 persons now dead, either from murder or at least strange deaths, who were closely related to Jack Ruby or Lee Harvey Oswald. I think all of us who love this country should be alerted that something is wrong in the land.
So tonight, as every night since November 22nd, I came here to hold a sign to explain to people that there are records still secret about John Kennedy's assassination that the government should release. Tonight, I wasn't allowed to hold the sign. The Kennedy Center honors. I gather they're honoring those other than John Kennedy because records of his murder are still secret, while thousands are being entertained here tonight. And I guess they don't want those thousands to feel uncomfortable about that conflict in circumstances.
The stairs, and it was one of several things going on today, and these observances took on a number of forms. At the center that bears his name, a wreath has been laid at the sculpture of John F. Kennedy, giving the already sober surroundings even more gravity. Outside on the plaza, a memory of that day 50 years ago. Carl Golovin was in elementary school at the time.
The principal coming on the loudspeaker and telling us what had happened, and all of us going home, and some kids on the bus very emotional.
But Golovin didn't come solely for remembrance. He was a one-man vigil in pursuit of answers.
The John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts is the necessary and appropriate place for a constitutional assembly or vigil to call for the government to immediately release all the remaining sealed records.
And there were other events. Back at the vigil outside the Kennedy Center, at least one man says our system of government suffers from the lack of information on the Kennedy assassination. And he reads from a 1961 speech by the president that he says now rings prophetic.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
50 years ago today, the day Camelot ended. In Northwest, Derek Ward, News 4.
Thanks, Derek.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, what you're doing and stuff like that.
No, I think it's time to go home.
Okay, all right. Story of my life.
Let's just call it a day.
Kennedy. It's a memorial built to honor him, and he is not fully honored by thousands gathering to be entertained here every day, while the records of his murder are kept secret. If you wouldn't mind, I would like to take about 1 minute just to read for you from a speech John Kennedy gave to journalists in 1961 on the topic of secrecy and the media. His words are just so really, they speak directly, I think, to the situation. John Kennedy speaking. The very word secrecy
is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
To stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. After 50 years, we deserve to know every last word of what's in the files pertinent to John Kennedy's assassination.
That's what we need. Thank you, sir.
President Harry Truman in 1947 signed into law establishment of the CIA. 1 month after John Kennedy's murder, Harry Truman published an article entitled, "Limit CIA Role to Intelligence." Reflect on CIA activities these past 50 years and consider anew the expert advice given by Harry Truman in December 1963. Quote, "For some time I have been disturbed by the way CIA has been diverted from its original assignment. I never had any thought that when I set up the CIA that it would be injected into peacetime cloak and dagger operations. We have grown up as a nation, respected for our free institutions and for our ability to maintain a free and open society. There is something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is casting a shadow over our historic position, and I feel that we need to correct it. I therefore would like to see the CIA be restored to its original assignment and that its operational duties be terminated."
Next, a discussion about the future of counterintelligence after the disclosures by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. You'll hear from William Nolte, who worked for both the CIA, NSA, and the Office of the Director for National Intelligence.
I figure you're either getting older or more important when there's an introducer to the introducer. Yeah, that's pretty good stuff. Over time, through the 70s and 80s, and perhaps even beyond, the protagonists in motion pictures and novels were less inclined to be the good guys ferreting out spies than either rogues doing really perverse things to civil liberties and all kinds of fun stuff, or actually the agents of departments and institutions that were out to violate civil liberties. This cultural shift, of course, marked more than counterintelligence, and whether one places it with the Warren Commission or the war in Vietnam, from the 1960s, the countercultural view that intelligence represented an effort to spy on Americans and deprive them of their constitutional liberties has been very strong. Let's leave aside for a moment, maybe for all time if we could, Oliver Stone's JFK. After about 2.5 hours of that, I can't figure out any institution in American life that is not implicated in his conspiracy. Questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, Carl. No, I wouldn't bring this up if you hadn't mentioned JFK, but I know Oliver Stone's perspective is he just offered a counterweight to the fiction of the Warren Commission. And, of course, this many years later, there is a skeptical public the further one gets from Washington, especially on issues such as the named names, George Joannides, liaison between CIA and the House Select Committee, who wasn't disclosed that in the early 60s he managed the student group that actually interacted with Oswald in New Orleans. And so to this day there are apparently 1,100 files that CIA still retained in full, and yet the public is told that Oswald and Ruby acted alone. And there's just a disconnect there. It's impossible if they acted alone why there would be 1,100 files still withheld.
Well, let me just say, I could go beyond JFK. I think he's a horrible director. But I do think if there are 1,100 files from that period still sitting classified, and we all know we classify too much and keep it too long. This goes back when you have a public dispute of this sort, and you're sitting on records that could help resolve that dispute. I think you do great harm to the public record. And I don't know that they're doing that, but that would certainly be my concern.
Do you have any advice on how the agency can be prompted to go ahead and disclose those records?
No, and
such as the files of David Atlee Phillips, E. Howard Hunt, they're still withheld in full.
You may know more about CIA history than I do, and I really can't give you too much advice on how to get that done. Every agency basically is its own master.
JFK said, "One person can make a difference, and everyone should try." His words and this video are your invitation to join a constitutional assembly on May 29, 2014, at 12:30 p.m. on the public terraces of the Kennedy Center, petitioning by your presence for immediate release of all the still secret JFK records, starting with the CIA 8 Most Wanted files, and return of the CIA to its original intelligence-only mandate. Honor John F. Kennedy. Free the files and find the truth. Restore America as a free and constitutional republic.
How did it go today?
It started kind of slow, but I think we've won, because it's been acknowledged that this plaza can be used for constitutional assembly of people, and InfoWars came here, and local NBC News arrived, and I think it's catching on. That was for you, Bill. You can't use that. Yeah, so now if there are enough people who really want the records released, then all you have to do is show up, and it will overwhelm Washington, and the records will be free. How's that for a naive perspective? I am Don Quixote.
Don Quixote.